Hello and welcome to another episode of Experiments and Explanations. My name is Marino from the Trusted Medics of the Wasteland, and today's topic is going to be understanding how sicknesses in the DayZ standalone work in general. And to get there, we're also going to take a close look at how food poisoning and chemical poisoning work. The sick status is commonly seen as a huge mystery that creates an enormous amount of confusion and questions every day. And unfortunately, even more wrong answers to those questions. It's not that I want to criticize anyone for trying to give an answer they think to be accurate, even though I know that it's wrong. Quite the opposite. Sharing knowledge is a good thing, of course. So, why didn't I give an answer in those cases when I knew that another response is wrong, inaccurate, or incomplete? Well, because knowing that something is wrong does not automatically also mean knowing what is right. And most of the time, I simply wasn't confident enough about my own knowledge. I had a lot of assumptions and observations that ruled out some things and made others seem more likely. Some things can be easily shown to be wrong, but others are way more complex. Really understanding how the various sicknesses work, for example, is an incredibly tedious task. Random chances of events happening, attempting to measure the effects on blood, health, energy, and water at the same time, and having to sit, wait, and observe for multiple hours is possible, but doesn't even automatically lead to new insights. Countless repetitions would be required to reach some confidence, and, well, time doesn't exactly grow on trees. Experimentation can only go so far. I had to learn that the hard way after not making much progress in more than a week of research, dozens of scribbled notes with observations littering my desk, and about a terabyte of wrapped footage of essentially me being sick. I needed more information. There are some descriptions of sicknesses available in the internet, but I have no way of knowing how complete or accurate they are. So I decided to go deeper and supplemented my experiments with a look at the game files myself, rather than just relying on copy-paste from another site. And luckily, after making sense of the code, it pretty much all added up. I was able to fill in many gaps in my theories and came to very satisfying and conclusive answers about how sicknesses work. In this, and probably a few following videos, I'd like to share that knowledge with you. As always, everything I say is to the best of my understanding. A lot is going to happen during the development of DayZ, but the principles of sicknesses are pretty genius, to be honest, so I think understanding the concepts will definitely help you in the long run. If I learn something new after making this video, I will annotate it and update the video when there are new developments in the game. Onwards to the sickness system. As it has been for hunger, thirst, and the stomach system, or blood and health regeneration, the standalone takes another step towards increased realism. So, obviously, the first thing to help us understand how sicknesses work in the game is looking at being sick in real life. The common flu. Every one of us has had it, most likely multiple times, and it comes back and ruins a few weeks of every year. It's really easy to catch it, well, typically from an inconsiderate coworker who sneezes right in your face while talking to you, and then continues to talk as if nothing happens while you feel the spittle dripping from your nose. Soon after, you start to not feel so well. You start to cough from time to time, you get the sniffles, and become a sneeze dispenser yourself. This stage typically lasts a few days, but sometimes it also hits you very quickly. At some point, the symptoms aggravate and your temperature rises rapidly, while mucus clogs up your sinuses and throat. In your feverish haze, you could swear the pounding in your head is the Grim Reaper himself, knocking at your door. In some occasions, you will have to endure those conditions for several days, but sometimes it's just 1 or 2 horrible nights. Then the symptoms start to subside, but even though you can breathe properly again, you're still exhausted by the ordeal, and your joints will continue to hurt for several days. Eventually, you will have fully recovered from that, and may happily return to the office, filled with coughing and sneezing colleagues. A week or two of the flu is nothing you would wish for, but it also greatly depends on your overall condition when the sickness hits you. If you are in good health when you get sick, it's annoying, but you can also pretty much shrug it off. Unless you want to be a wuss about it and suffer a bit more on the outside than you really do on the inside, so your special someone will take extra care of you. You know what I'm talking about, gentlemen. If, on the other hand, you are already somewhat weakened, maybe have had another infliction recently, are malnourished or physically weak, even a small flu may have dramatic consequences on you and may even be lethal. There is a good reason why small children and the elderly are especially threatened by it. They are the least resilient. So why am I telling you all this? Well, you know this already after all, don't you? Well, it's because if you understand this, you will probably also understand how sicknesses work in DayZ. Let's take a look at the first ailment, light food poisoning. You may get this if you just want to know how that furry apple tastes, or if you do shots of alcohol tincture. At first, you will only notice a weird taste in your mouth as the less than healthy substance makes its way through your system. Then, after 3 to 7 minutes, you will become nauseous. At this point, you will have the first symptoms. Your water level will deplete at a very mildly increased rate. I'm staying intentionally vague here, since I'm not 100% sure if I interpret the code correctly, but if I do, there is very little change to your water requirements. Still, the general advice to stay hydrated is going to become much more relevant later, so you may as well get used to it now. This stage is also accompanied by a green sickness status in your inventory screen. Not too threatening, yet. After 10 to 20 minutes, you will then experience feebleness. You feel unsteady, faint, or dizzy in red letters. The sickness indicator now turns orange, and at this point you will actually start to lose blood. The rate of blood loss is rather low. You lose 0.1% of your current blood. Your current blood, not your total blood. You will see why that is important in a minute. Also, your water loss increases a bit more, but still nothing to be highly worried about. After 20 to 40 minutes, you will have endured the worst part of light food poisoning and enter the recovery stage. While you still have the orange status for 50 to 30 minutes, you actually don't have any symptoms whatsoever. No blood loss, no water loss, no nothing. Sounds familiar? One of the most common questions is, why do I get sick when I use charcoal tablets? Here's the answer. When you take a charcoal tablet, you practically skip over any stage you may be currently in, directly to the recovery stage. However, that also means that you get to experience this stage whenever you take a charcoal tablet, even if you haven't been sick at all. So is that always a bad thing? Well, not really. You can't have multiple instances of one condition. So while you are in this stage, you are effectively immune to light food poisoning. Think of the charcoal tablet resting in your stomach for a while. However, medium food poisoning is not covered by that and may still occur. By the way, that is also pretty much the same thing that happens when you clean your wounds with alcohol tincture or take antibiotics. You jump straight to the last stage of having an infected wound, which is why you read your wounds look cleaner and your wounds are healed now. I will talk more about further medical aspects in a follow-up video. The medical system is in a rougher shape than may be apparent at first glance with all those various medical items and rumors about conditions and proposed treatments. This is obviously going to change in the future, so make sure you check back from time to time when they continue to work on it, and when I tell you about it. But back to curing food poisoning with charcoal tablets. There is a second myth that is closely tied to a third myth, so let's clear them both up at the same time. You can supposedly cure food poisoning by causing yourself to vomit by overdrinking or overeating. No, you can't. Vomiting does not remove the food poisoning condition. What it does is overwriting the orange sick status from the food poisoning with the green sick status from vomiting, but the symptoms of the food poisoning and any other status you may have persist, in addition to the recent forceful extraction of your tummy's contents. The origin of this misconception is the following. You only have one slot in your inventory screen that can show the sick status, and it always only shows the one that has most recently changed. So if you have orange sickness from food poisoning and then force yourself to vomit, you will see the green sickness from vomiting, but will continue to suffer from food poisoning. And as if that wasn't confusing enough already, let's top it off with another fact. You can't only have multiple sicknesses at once with only the most recent status change shown. You can even be healthy while being sick. The healthy or healing indicator goes in the same slot as sick does. So if you are healthy, which allows you to regenerate blood, and then become sick, the healthy status gets overwritten by the sick status, but you continue to be healthy in the background. I hope your mind isn't blown now. If you haven't passed out yet, one more piece of information that I'd like to put out there as well. There seems to be a glitch that I ran into myself and that was mentioned in the forums recently. That happens when the most recent status expires. It may cause the status that was below the expired status, which is now on top of the stack of statuses, not to show up until an event happens that causes it to update. Particularly, the health or healing status do not reappear after a sickness subsides until you take damage or cross the required limit for a status change. They also don't disappear when you don't fulfill the water and energy requirements anymore, meaning you can be thirsty and supposedly healthy at the same time. But in reality, the healthy status is already gone or inactive. It's just not being properly removed from your inventory screen. I'd recommend not relying on this display too much and rather trying to understand and being aware of what is going on with you. Now that we have established that you can be healthy and sick at the same time, let's take a look at this graph. Here you can see your blood level over the duration of light food poisoning. Like I said, every stage can have a varying duration, for example 20 to 40 minutes of feebleness, during which you lose 0.1% of blood per second. In this graph, I differentiate between the best case scenario, as the yellow line, in which every stage of the sickness lasts as short as it possibly can, and a worst case scenario, in which every stage lasts as long as it possibly can, the orange line. As you can see, light food poisoning causes your blood level to drop quite substantially. Now you can also see why it is important that you lose 0.1% of your current blood and not your total blood. If it was total blood, your blood level would drop in a straight, constant line to 0. But since it's actually 0.1% of your current blood, the lower you drop, the less you lose per second, which means you level out at some point. Of course, given enough time, you would still drop pretty low. But since our current stages of sicknesses in DayZ end sooner than that, in the best case of 20 minutes, you will end up with 1,500 blood left. If, on the other hand, you are really unlucky and the feebleness stage lasts more than 38 of the 40 maximum minutes, you will actually fall below the critical value of 500 blood and drop unconscious. This is, of course, all assuming that you are at full blood when you decide to shove a moldy orange in your face. That is pretty dire if you're on your own, but don't despair, you lone wolves. Like I said, you can't only be healthy while being sick, it is highly desirable. Here's what your blood level looks like in the best and the worst case scenario if you are healthy. What is going on here? Well, quite simple actually when you get behind it. You lose blood at a rate of 0.1% of your current blood level, but you regenerate at a rate of 3 absolute blood per second. So when you are at 5,000 blood, you do lose 5 blood per second. But since you also regenerate 3 in the same second, you really only lose 2 blood. So the curve is far shallower than previously. And even more importantly, since your blood loss decreases as you drop lower, but your regeneration remains constant, you can't drop below 3,000 blood. At this point, you would be losing 0.1% of 3,000 blood, which is 3, and regenerate 3. Your healthy status cancels out the blood loss entirely and forms kind of a barrier at 3,000 blood. Nifty, huh? So in both the best and the worst case scenario, you are never in a real danger. Your healthy body will effectively fight the affliction, and you may endure it much more easily than if you were in a bad, unhealthy condition. At this point, I would like to clarify that the healthy status is commonly being understood as in perfect health condition. I think that's a wrong way of interpreting it. In my eyes, it's closer to being well nourished and in a good condition, able to endure punishment, hardship, and stress and recovering from it. It's an extra layer of extremely effective protection that you shouldn't miss out on. Yes, being sick will have a negative impact on you nonetheless, but being healthy when it hits you can be compared to having your shields up when an attack lands. If your shields are down or weakened, any attack will go straight to your armor and will possibly penetrate it. So make sure you don't lower your shield. Stay healthy, my friends. No, that wasn't the end of the video. We just established the basic understanding so we can take a look at further sicknesses. There's still a lot more to learn, so let's get to it. Medium food poisoning. The middle brother is quite a bit nastier than the smallest. Luckily, their bigger brother, severe food poisoning, isn't currently allowed to come out to play, but rest assured he won't be grounded forever, and when he's back outside, you may want to shut the windows and close the blinds. But for now, let's deal with medium food poisoning and what he brings to the table. The initial stage may seem familiar. This is not a copy-pasta error. It's identical to the first stage of light food poisoning, so you won't know right away what hit you when you add another rotten fruit or lost in tincture pong. The second stage is also somewhat comparable, but this time the nausea is more severe and comes with a red rather than a white warning. Over 10 to 30 minutes, you will now lose 0.2% of your current blood level per second. Your water depletes at an increased rate again, and you will have a green sickness status. After this stage, you will vomit once, which causes you to lose quite a bit of water and energy, so make sure you compensate for that by eating and drinking to maintain your healthy status, even if you can't currently see it. A few seconds later, you will enter a more intense period of feebleness, which lasts 20 to 40 minutes this time, comes with an orange sick status and red text messages, and it causes you to lose water and another 0.1% of your current blood per second. If you happen to survive this, you have another 15 to 30 minutes of exhaustion coming up, still with an orange sick status and further text messages. Fortunately, if you do reach this point, you will have no further symptoms that affect your blood or water levels. Medium food poisoning is vastly more threatening than light food poisoning, but luckily it can still be treated with charcoal tablets, and I advise you to do so soon after doing something stupid. And also make sure you compensate for lost fluids. Drink frequently. Let's now again take a look at your blood levels if you aren't healthy first. While it is quite likely to get out of light food poisoning alive, an unhealthy person doesn't stand a chance against medium food poisoning. Even in the best case, you will still drop unconscious at the end of the feebleness stage, and you won't come back from it if you don't receive medical assistance. If that does happen to you and you don't feel like booking a trip to the ocean, equipment not included, I advise you to call a doctor as soon as possible. If you don't have a pocket paramedic available, you can always drop by the TeamSpeak server of the Trusted Medics of the Wasteland and request assistance. Contact us at tmwdayz.com. We may not have ambulances yet, but I'm sure we can improvise the siren sounds. While we will try our best to get you out of your unfortunate situation, you may prefer to be more self-reliant though. In that case, I'll have to point at being healthy again. Take a look at this. The best case and the worst case of medium food poisoning when you are healthy. Doesn't look quite as grim now, does it? Let's go along those lines to make sure we understand what is happening. First, you take a pretty deep plunge in any case. 0.2% of your current blood means you start out with losing 10 blood per second while only regenerating 3. But again, as you drop lower, the difference becomes smaller. The lines trend towards 1500 blood. At this point, you would again be losing 3 blood per second while regenerating 3 blood per second, cancelling out the loss. So being healthy effectively protects you from dropping lower than 1500 blood. Even more so, in the next phase when you only lose 0.1% of blood per second, since you are at 1500, you only lose 1.5 blood per second while regenerating 3. So you actually start regenerating from your sickness while you are still sick and still losing blood. Good guy health status strikes again. And of course, once you've fully endured the entire sickness, your blood level shoots straight back to its maximum in a matter of minutes. I have to admit that when I saw those lines for the first time after plotting in my calculated data points, I was nothing short of amazed. The way the devs oppose blood loss and regeneration against each other, how the absolute numbers cushion the initially harsh relative drop from high blood levels, letting you carefully drift towards a certain blood level is sheer beauty to me. Becoming aware of mechanisms such as this ongoing battle is one of the main reasons why I originally started doing my research. Not being healthy is not only a huge drawback from a gameplay point of view, you would also miss out on how the numbers wrestle in the background, smoothly changing the colors on your screen while your body fights off the disease. Being healthy, on the other hand, is great. However, the fact that you can have multiple statuses at the same time, like sick and healthy, comes at a price. Light food poisoning and medium food poisoning are treated independently, so it's perfectly possible to have both at the same time if you do something stupid multiple times. But, you guessed it, being healthy would also allow you to endure the combination of the two. Luckily, it's currently not possible to get severe food poisoning, at least as far as I know. But if you would like to see a more extreme case than the previous two, we have one more option, after which I will wrap up this video. Chemical poisoning. Chemical poisoning is serious business. You may have the pleasure of enjoying it if you ingest disinfectant spray in any way. Caution, do not try this at home, please. Chemical poisoning starts somewhat similar to food poisoning, but the shorter duration of the initial stage indicates it comes straight to the point. Lift the curtain after as little as 40 to 120 seconds for severe nausea with an orange sickness indicator. You will not only lose blood, but also health this time at a staggering rate of 0.5% per second. That's 25 each in the first second. Also, at the same time, your water depletes at double the normal rate for as far as I can tell. You can't really get sloppy with hydration in this case. Luckily, this extreme stage only lasts 2 to 5 minutes. It is being followed up by vomiting. Again, you lose a lot of water and energy in an instant, so make sure you compensate for that in time. It can't get much worse than the first stage? Take another guess. You follow up with 20 to 40 minutes of stomach cramps with a red sick status, during which you continue to lose blood and health, this time at 0.3% of your respective current value each. Also, your water loss triples at this point. Staying nearby a water pump or similar if you want to fight this condition is highly advisable. If, against all odds, you endure the stage, you will vomit once more and enter the final stage, exhaustion. For 15 to 30 minutes, you lose another 0.1% of blood per second, and your water still depletes at double its normal rate. As you may know, there is no cure for chemical poisoning, and that includes vomiting. It doesn't help. And once more, being healthy at least gives you a fighting chance. But will it be enough? Let's first take a look at how your condition develops if you are not healthy. Not a snowball's chance in hell. You will drop unconscious in about 10 to 12 minutes, no matter what. The initial drop is steep, and while you will survive the severe nausea, the stomach cramps are too much. If you don't have external help, you won't come back from this. So let's see if the healthy status can save the day once more. And the short answer is, yes it can. It can't do much against the extremely fast loss of blood in the beginning, but again, as your blood level drops, since you are losing an amount relative to your current blood level, it is once more cancelled out by your regeneration. During the stomach cramps phase, it protects you from dropping below 1000 blood, and once the stage is over, you even start to trend back towards 3000 blood in the exhaustion stage. And again, once the sickness is over, your blood level returns to its maximum soon after. But remember one thing. Chemical poisoning causes you to lose the same amount of blood and health at the same rate. And your health cannot regenerate while your blood level isn't full, so it actually behaves the same way your blood level would if you were unhealthy. It drops rapidly and trends towards zero. But it technically can't reach zero unless the game cuts off the number and rounds to zero at some point. But for the duration of chemical poisoning, you are somewhat safe from dying. Of course, the slightest amount of damage may still take you under. You will be at 1 health for a long time. But the good news is, once your blood level is back up, your health will start regenerating right away. I think it's pretty impressive to experience the whole process of being chemically poisoned and surviving the condition, which is why I made a comment and time-lapse video, for science of course. I condensed the entire process that took about 2.5 hours into a few minutes, in which you can see the entire transition from full blood and health, enduring chemical poisoning, and then recovering from it. Feel free to open it in the background and take a look at it. Oh, by the way, a quick shout out to fellow survivor Lasagna, aka Crazy Mugger. I entered a room while scavenging for the supplies for this experiment where he was sitting, pointing his M4 at the door. I already saw myself looking for the required items all over, but rather than shooting, he even offered help. Thanks for that. And thanks to my various assistants that are tirelessly willing to aid and kill me. And of course, you YouTubers and forum commenters who ask questions about the game mechanics. Curiosity and skepticism are important for the process of discovering knowledge, so please keep getting involved, guys. On that note, let's do a quick summary. Sicknesses have multiple stages and you go through them in order. Each stage has a minimum and a maximum duration, different symptoms and messages. You can have multiple sicknesses at the same time. Light and medium food poisoning are separate sicknesses, so you can actually have both of them. However, while one condition is ongoing, you can't get it again, which means you may use charcoal tablets preemptively. You may, however, still get medium food poisoning. Being healthy is not only important to recover from combat wounds, it also allows you to endure sicknesses that would otherwise knock you out. It acts as an additional layer of defense, a regenerating shield if you will. The healthy status is somewhat badly worded. It's not perfect health condition. It's rather the ability to withstand and recover from negative influences. Sicknesses often come with an increased water drain, so make sure you stay even more hydrated than usually. Also, try not to depend on the statuses in your inventory screen too much, as they aren't terribly reliable. Understand and become aware of what is happening to your character by reading status messages and observing effects on your screen, like changes to saturation and blurriness. Light food poisoning is a rather minor condition that healthy people don't really have to concern themselves with. If you are not healthy, on the other hand, you will lose a significant amount of blood if you let it go untreated, so you may want to look out for charcoal tablets. They are the only cure for food poisoning at this time, and they also work for medium food poisoning. If you are unlucky enough to get medium food poisoning and you are not healthy, find medical assistance immediately, as it will inevitably knock you out. If you are healthy, you will notice a temporary dipping of your blood level, but as long as you drink a bit more than usual, you should be fine. However, even if you are healthy, chemical poisoning is nothing to joke about. You can survive it if you remain highly hydrated and fed. I'm not quite sure how much more water you need, but I aimed for 1 sip from a water pump per minute, which is close to the maximum amount of what you can take in without filling up your stomach. It was probably more than needed, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. It may be possible to stretch out the drinking interval to 1 canteen per 10 minutes while resting, but I wouldn't risk it. Also, if you are active at the same time, you may not be able to take in enough water to compensate the increased loss without overloading your stomach. Also, remember to drink an extra large amount of water after vomiting. But even if you focus on staying hydrated, you will still have to avoid taking any damage whatsoever. It may instantly kill you as your health rapidly gravitates towards the single digit range. Overcoming chemical poisoning isn't easy, but definitely possible. And doing so may give you some routine and calmness for when more health impairing conditions find their way to Chernarus. Many more nasty sicknesses, diseases, and infections are looming on the horizon. Try to understand the basic concept of how they work, and you will be as prepared as you can possibly be for the 7 plagues that Rocket is going to unleash at some point. My next video is going to be on a few more afflictions and medical items that are currently active in the game, but spoiler alert, are only partially done and cause a lot of confusion as well. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something today that helps you survive, or at least to understand why you didn't survive. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends to answer some of their questions, and subscribe for future videos and updates. You may also find a lot more useful related information in the other guides in my channel. Furthermore, whenever you are in trouble in the DayZ Standalone and need medical help, feel free to visit the Trusted Medics of the Wasteland at tmwdayz.com. There is always a lot of us on the TeamSpeak server, and we should be able to treat even the worst cases of the man flu. My name is Marino, and stay healthy, my friends.